coalition of investors and industry experts has launched a roadmap of policy proposals in a bid to further progress the nation's energy transition and establish our nation as a zero emissions superpower. Let's bring in Tim Buckley. We talk to Tim quite regularly on the program. He's a Director of Climate Energy Finance. Tim, what's this all about? Because the messages I've heard before, but the roadmap that you're launching today, is it about trying to speed up the transition? How do you do that?
Kieran, thanks. I think it's a really, really fundamentally critical question for Australia. And let me put the context on. In Europe, we have the EU Repower Europe policy. We have the Industry Act. The new president of the European Commission has recommended at Davos last week. That was in direct response to the massive government stimulus of the US IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. That in its own right is a direct response to the Chinese 5-year plan and the fact that China is outspending America 5-1 on everything to do with decarbonisation. And our biggest trade partner for fossil fuels is Japan. Japan in December 2022 announced the GX roadmap, a 20 trillion yen subsidy for driving decarbonisation and reindustrialisation of Japan. So I'm all for free markets, but when we're talking about decarbonisation at the speed and scale with all of the manufacturing and supply chains and energy security and supply chain security concerns, everyone globally is throwing not billions, but tens, if not hundreds of billions, if not trillions, or hundreds of billions of dollars of subsidies. And so for Australia to just go, oh, let's just leave it to industry, let's leave it to the free market. Well, none of our competitors are leaving it to the free market. We need to have a concerted public-private partnership, a collaboration. We need to set the framework, set a strategic direction and vision, and then have the government work with industry, work with finance to actually build Australia's renewable energy powered superpower.
Yeah, and when you say renewable energy superpower, why is that? Is it simply because there's more sun, more wind, the rare earths that I know are needed for various components in the renewable energy? And as to be a devil's advocate for a moment, what do you say to those that argue there is just simply not the storage available or the dispatchability of this energy to enable it to be the base load required?
Yeah, let's not get into a baseload debate. I think that's the argument of a decade ago why this can't happen. I think when we have Australia running on 100% instantaneous variable renewable energy, we have South Australia leading the world in it. I think that debate's sort of dead and buried. What we really have to do is work out, Australia last year exported $200 billion of fossil fuels. If we are going to deal globally with climate change, that has to go to zero over the next 20, 30 years. We can debate whether Japan, China, America, Europe will actually drive policy to do that. And while we can export, we will. About $200 billion. I am in a conference today hearing about how there is an existential threat to Australia's $100 billion of of iron ore that we export, because our iron ore is not of high enough quality to be put in an electric arc furnace. If the world decarbonises the steel industry, that means it pivots from blast furnaces to electric arc furnaces. We have too low a quality of iron ore to deliver to electric arc furnaces. Now, we have 38% of the world's supply of iron ore. That's $100 billion a year. It's an industry that makes 80% profit margins. So what I'm putting out is we have an existential threat against $200 billion of fossil fuels. We have $100 billion a year of iron ore. Both are actually challenged. We need to build industries of the future. Okay. I'll finish on a really positive point. We exported 50% of the world's lithium last year. 50%. Lithium demand is going to double and then double and double again. Australia is the world leader. We need to value add it, and critical minerals and rare earths and green iron and green aluminium become the alternative. That's the superpower.
Okay. Tim Buckley, Director of Climate Energy Finance. Appreciate it, as always.